This video is sponsored by War Thunder. What's up YouTube? It's Alter Ego welcoming you to the REPO enemy danger tier list. We're going to be covering every single enemy, how they work, strategies for that enemy, and then we'll be throwing them onto the tier list. I'll have everything separated into chapters, so if you're looking for a specific enemy, you can find the exact timestamp in the description below. Now that we have that out of the way, make sure you guys like the video and let's get started. First up, we have animals. Animals are one of the weirdest enemies in the game as they don't really attack you, they just kind of run around rampant. If one sees you, it'll usually charge you once, then just keep running around. They have 150 health and will deal 2 damage when they hit you. They make a lot of unpredictable turns and movements, and they move around pretty fast, which can get you hit, but as long as you take height, they can't reach you. The only time they're really dangerous is if you have multiple of them running around near pits, or if you're in a tight space. They're really not much of a threat to players, they're more of a threat to your items as they'll force you to drop whatever you have so you don't get hit. I usually just ignore animals, but if you have the resources, it doesn't hurt to get rid of them since they'll drop an orb worth anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000. Killing animals can sometimes be a headache because they're super unpredictable with their movement and they'll often kick items out of your hand. Animals will get stunned from small items, which is a good way to kill them. The only issue is that they'll also kick the item out of your hand, so if you're going to stun an animal with a small item, it's good to have a teammate next to you to follow up. Their strength breakpoint is 4, which just means that once you have 4 strength upgrades, you can stun them just by picking them up. Now, when you do this, remember that they will only be stunned for 2 to 4 seconds, then they'll break out. So make sure you're resetting your grab after every slam to keep them in basically an infinite stun. Animals can sometimes knock you and your items around, but because they have low damage output and are very easy to avoid, this makes them one of the least dangerous enemies in the game, earning them a spot as a C tier enemy. Next up, we have bangers. Bangers will spawn in groups of 3, and each will have 50 HP. When they see you, they'll immediately ignite and begin following you. After about 10 seconds, you'll hear another sound cue, then they'll explode, dealing 30 damage. They are extremely light and can be picked up without any strength upgrades, making them pretty easy to deal with. You can use them as a weapon against other enemies if you time it right, but usually I'll just throw these guys into a pit or smash them against a wall a couple times to kill them. Just be careful when doing this as they'll explode when they die. I don't think there's much to discuss here. Bangers are definitely a solid C tier enemy right above animals. Next up, we have bow ties. Although these guys are big, they only have 100 health, which is very low compared to most enemies. When they see you, they'll drop down and basically turn into a fan and blow you. They'll also blow any enemies or items, which can be pretty bad if your cart gets caught in the crossfire. If you get caught in this attack, the bow tie will deal 5 damage per hit. Bow ties are very deadly in tight spaces because if you get stuck against a wall, the bow tie will not stop attacking until you're dead, and there's really not much you can do. On top of that, bow ties become even more dangerous during the higher levels because there's more pits you can get blown into. The good news is that bow ties are slow and loud, so you'll usually spot them before they spot you, and once you know where a bow tie is, it's pretty easy to avoid. Like I said before, they only have 100 HP, which means one grenade, landmine, or shot from a gun will kill them. Their orb can be worth up to $7,000, so it's definitely worth killing these guys, especially considering how little health they have. Just make sure you're sneaking up on them because attacking them from the front is not a good idea. You can also use a medium weight item like the clown to stun them, or if you have 7 strength upgrades, you can pick them up and slam them down. Bow ties are one of the stronger enemies in the game, which makes me want to throw them in the A tier, but I think because of the fact that you'll usually see them first, and once you see them, they're pretty easy to avoid, this makes them a high B tier enemy. Next up are clowns. Clowns have 250 health and they have 2 attacks. If they spot you at a distance, they'll use their beam attack, which will actually only deal 30 damage, but it'll pretty much always knock you back hard enough to do an extra 70 damage. So if you get hit by this beam, expect to take 100 damage. This attack at first seems very scary, but it's actually really easy to dodge once you learn that the clown always aims for your head. So if the clown spots you while you're standing, you can duck underneath the beam, and if he spots you when you're crouching, you can jump over the beam. Once it shoots its beam, if it can still see you, it'll charge towards you and try to kick you, which again will only deal 10 damage, but it'll pretty much always knock you back hard enough to deal an extra 50, which means if you get hit by this attack, expect to take 60 damage. This attack is also pretty easy to avoid just by backing up or jumping over it. As a side note, the clown has proximity awareness range, and if you step into this range, he will turn and kick you very fast, even if he wasn't looking at you, so you don't want to get too close to the clown, and if you're trying to kill him with a melee weapon, you need to bait his kick first. Usually, if I run into a clown, I'll bait his beam attack, duck underneath it, then run into another room. It's usually pretty easy. You can use a medium weight item to stun him, or you can pick him up if you have 13 strength upgrades. Because of the clown's extremely high damage output and the constant pressure he applies, he earns a spot as the first A tier enemy. Next up, we have the infamous ducky. The duck is completely harmless and will simply follow your cursor wherever you point it and even jump up to grab your attention if you try to look away. The goal of the duck is to get you to interact with it, in which case it'll aggro onto you, chasing you for 10 seconds and dealing 10 damage per hit. You don't need to worry about the cart hitting the duck, but you do need to worry about accidentally hitting it with items, other enemies hitting it, or anything else that can do damage to the duck. Once this duck is aggroed, it becomes extremely dangerous because it flies fast and it attacks fast. Now, if the duck aggroes onto you, it'll chase you wherever you go, which makes it very easy to run out of sprint. I've found that the best way to get away from it is by using the tumble launch tech. All you do is sprint and roll, and as soon as you roll, you jump and go into object mode. This will launch you a pretty good distance, and you only need like 2 or 3 energy to perform this tech. If a duck is on your level, you should kill it as soon as possible since they only have 150 health and there are quite a few easy ways to kill it. You can kill it with a cauldron or toilet, just make sure you finish them off once they're stunned. You can kill it with the extraction point, or you can just stand still and have a teammate kill it. Whatever you do, do not try to kill it with an item because items will not stun ducks, they will only aggro ducks. As a last resort, you can also tumble launch into the duck, which will stun it for a couple seconds, and if you do it enough times, it'll kill the duck, but this is not easy by any means. The duck will drop an orb worth anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000. Although the duck is very dangerous and hard to get away from when it's aggroed, I think because of the fact that it's harmless until provoked, and because it's one of the easiest enemies to kill, the duck is a solid B tier enemy just under BOWTIEs. Next up, we have the headman with 250 health. As soon as he spots a player, he'll immediately begin charging towards that player, flying very fast until he catches up to chomp at them, dealing 50 damage per chomp. Every enemy has proximity awareness, which I find is most noticeable in the headman, so if you're hiding from him, be sure to not get too close, because if you do, he can aggro onto you even if he's not looking at you. Like I said, the headman is very fast, so you do not want him to aggro onto you, because if he does, he'll run you out of sprint very fast, and once you're out of sprint, it is very hard to get away from him. If he does aggro onto you, you need to break line of sight and find a piece of furniture to hide behind or underneath, but even then, if he sees you hide underneath something, he'll drop down and chomp at you, and as long as he can reach you, he'll keep chomping until you're dead. So when you're looking for a spot to hide, you want to look for something that has enough space so you can back up away from the headman if he attacks you. I've also found that if you can afford a hit, sometimes it's better to run towards the headman and slide underneath him. He'll usually get one hit on you, but it'll give you a boost forward, and the headman will still need to turn around to find you, which can buy you some extra time to find a safe spot. If there's a headman on your level, you want to spot the headman before it spots you. As long as you spot him first, he's pretty easy to hide from, but if he spots you first, he's very hard to escape from. With the right resources, the headman is fairly easy to kill since he's a big target and flies directly towards you. You can use a medium item to stun him, or you can pick him up with 13 strength upgrades. However, I'd suggest coming up behind him when doing this because it's very hard to pick him up if he's aggroed onto you. His orb is worth between $4,000 and $8,000. The headman is very aggressive, very fast, very hard to get away from, and outputs some pretty high damage, which easily makes him one of the hardest enemies to play against, earning him a spot as an S tier enemy. Before we get to hidden, we're going to say a quick thank you to our sponsor. War Thunder is the ultimate vehicle combat game, and you can jump in for free right now on PC, consoles, and even mobile. War Thunder offers 3 game modes for every playstyle. Arcade mode delivers fast-paced action with boosted performance, while simulator mode is a hardcore no-assist challenge. I personally recommend realistic mode, which is pretty much the perfect balance between the two. Take control of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, spanning everything from the classic biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to today's cutting-edge fighter jets and main battle tanks. Get ready for intense, action-packed battles where ultra-detailed vehicles, stunning graphics, and realistic sound effects put you right in the driver's seat of history's most powerful war machines. War Thunder is also now on mobile. Play on iOS and Android and take battle anywhere. With easy controls, great graphics, and massive multiplayer action across land, sea, and air, the full War Thunder experience is in your pocket. Join over 70 million players in epic PvP battles, totally free. War Thunder is available on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile, so jump in now. Sign up using my links in the pinned comment or video description to grab a massive bonus pack for new players and those returning after 6 months on PC and console only. This pack will include multiple premium vehicles, an exclusive vehicle decorator, 100 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account for limited time only. Now we are on to the hidden. The hidden is an invisible enemy which will pick you up and run you to a random spot on the map. If you get grabbed, you can actually have a teammate save you by grabbing you and pulling you out. He has 100 health and doesn't deal any damage, so it's not much of a threat on its own, but once you get to higher levels, he becomes more of a threat since there are more pits and more enemies. You will be surprised at the amount of times this guy will drop you into a pit or drop you near enemies and get you killed. Killing him can sometimes be a pain since you can't see him, but you can hear him and see his footsteps. You can stun him with small items, and with 4 strength upgrades, you can pick him up and kill him, dropping an orb worth somewhere between $3,500 and $7,000. He's more annoying than deadly, but at higher levels, he can put you in very bad positions, earning him a spot as a low B tier enemy. Next up is the SHADOWCHILD. The SHADOWCHILD will appear randomly and stand completely still. The longer you look at her, the longer her arms will grow, eventually getting to the point where she'll grab you and yank you towards her, dealing 30 damage. She is really easy to deal with as long as you just don't look at her. Even if you accidentally look at her a couple times, she usually won't aggro unless your teammates were also looking at her. She stands completely still, so she's super easy to kill. I prefer killing her with melee weapons, but you can use small items as well. If she's really in a bad spot, you can tumble launch into her, but she usually disappears before you have the chance to do enough damage to kill her. At 9 strength, you can pick her up and kill her, and she'll drop an orb worth somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. SHADOWCHILD is very easy to avoid, very easy to kill, and doesn't deal very much damage, making her one of the weakest enemies in the game and earning her a spot at the bottom of the tier list. Next up, we have the HUNTSMAN. The HUNTSMAN is completely blind and works just based on sound, shooting at anything he hears, including voice chat. If he hears you, he immediately turns and shoots you, giving almost no time to react, and he deals 100 damage, which is the reason he's so deadly. If you're close enough, he can hear you crouch and uncrouch. If you interact with an item or enemy that makes a sound, he'll link that sound to you, and if you touch him with your body, an item, or even the cart, he'll shoot directly at you. Now, if you spot the HUNTSMAN before he spots you, he's usually pretty easy to get around since he can't hear you when you're crouching, but since he's completely silent, it's very easy to accidentally run into him and even easier for him to sneak up on you. This guy by himself is already super deadly, and when you pair him with any other enemy, even C tier enemies, he becomes basically twice as dangerous. One of the worst combinations is probably the duck, because if the duck jumps or quacks, sometimes the HUNTSMAN will link that sound to you, and if he does, you're done. You can dodge his shot by rolling to the side, but this is very hard and very unreliable, especially as host. If you're not hosting, his shot will trail, making it a little easier to dodge, but I wouldn't rely on this strategy unless you've had a lot of practice. He has 250 health and will one-tap you if you don't have any health upgrades. If you don't have the resources to kill him, having a HUNTSMAN on your map will force you to play much slower and much more cautious. Even if you do have the resources to kill him, your first attack needs to hit, especially with melee weapons, because if you touch the HUNTSMAN with an item, but it doesn't stun him, he'll link that item to you and kill you. You can stun him with medium-sized items, but like I said before, your first swing needs to hit him. You can always bait his shot by smacking the item on the floor first if you want to play it safe. There is also some tech that I believe Wurps discovered where you can actually kill the HUNTSMAN without any weapons or strength. First, you bait a shot, then grab and aggressively rotate him until he's on the ground, and finally pick up either his head or feet and keep slamming him down until he dies. This method can be really hard because if you don't rotate him fast enough, he'll get a shot off, and if you don't successfully slam him down every try, he'll break out of the stun, but with some practice, this can be a very convenient way to kill the HUNTSMAN. With 9 strength upgrades, you can pick up and stun the HUNTSMAN. Just be sure to bait a shot first or he'll shoot you as soon as you grab him. Killing him will drop an orb worth anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000. The HUNTSMAN is easily the most dangerous enemy in the game as he is completely silent, making it very easy for him to sneak up on you. He deals 100 damage, which will one-tap you. He completely changes the gameplay and strategy when he's on your level, and he becomes more dangerous on higher levels when combined with other enemies, placing him at the very top of the S tier category. Next up, we have the REPO. The REPO has 250 health and will deal 10 damage per hit. The REPO is usually pretty easy to hide from as long as you see it before it sees you, but if it sees you first, it can be extremely deadly. When it spots you, it'll pause for a second, then charge you as it slashes its swords. You'll need to immediately break line of sight and crouch or hide underneath something to avoid getting caught in her attack. If she sees you hide underneath something, she has a crouch attack that works the same way as the HEADMAN, so make sure you have enough space to get away. You can also hide underneath furniture and continue to interact with her to keep her aggroed onto you while a teammate hits her from the back. The REPO will run you out of your stamina pretty quickly, and if you get caught in her attack, she is extremely hard to get away from, making her very, very dangerous. On top of that, she will mess up any items in her way, so for those of you trying to avoid her using the carts, I'll be sure to send up some prayers for you tonight. Killing her isn't as easy as most enemies, as she'll deflect items with her swords, and if she gets close enough, she'll knock items out of your hands. If you're gonna try to kill her, you need to use a gun or sneak up on her. You can use any medium-sized item to stun her, or if you have 9 strength upgrades, you can pick her up and kill her, in which case she'll drop an orb worth between $6,000 and $8,000. The Reaper will run you out of stamina fairly quickly. She's very hard to get away from if you get caught in her attack, and she's harder to kill than most enemies, earning her the title of the top A-tier enemy. Next up is the Mentalist at 150 health. Once you get close enough to the Mentalist, he'll summon an anti-gravity orb. Any players in this orb will float up in object mode, leaving them helpless. After a few seconds, the Mentalist will slam everything down, dealing 50 damage to any players. Now, if your teammate gets caught in this attack, you can actually save them by grabbing them and pulling them out. If the Mentalist is in a bad spot, or you want to kill the Mentalist, you can bait this attack pretty easily. Once the Mentalist is red, it is completely safe to run towards it, as you won't get attacked. The Mentalist has very bad eyesight and is really easy to hide and run away from since it's not very fast. You can grab and stun the Mentalist at 4 strength upgrades, and if you want to use an item to kill him, you'll need at least a medium weight item. I've never had an issue with Mentalists, as they're easy to run and hide from, they're pretty easy to kill, and even if you get caught in their attack, they only deal 50 damage, so I'll be placing them in the B tier category right below Ducks. Now on to Rugrats. These little guys may not look dangerous, but they are very dangerous. Once one of them spots you, it'll pick up a nearby item and throw it at you. He can even take items out of your hand. You can dodge this attack, but it's very hard because the throwing animation is very fast and the velocity at which the Rugrat throws the item is even faster. Basically, if a Rugrat finds an item to throw, chances are he's going to hit you. The damage varies depending on the item. As a general rule, the bigger the item, the more damage it'll do. Some items will do 30 damage, some can do over 100, and that's not including the impact damage. If there's a Rugrat on your map, you cannot ignore it. You need to take it out right away. Luckily, they only have 150 health and can be stunned using a small item. I suggest using a pocket watch or a crown, but pretty much any non-fragile item should work. If you have 4 strength upgrades, you can pick him up and stun him, and killing him will drop an orb worth between $2,000 and $4,000. Although Rugrats are easy to kill, when it comes to damage, they are one of the highest damage outputting enemies in the game. They're fast, they attack quickly, and they are very hard to avoid. I definitely think Rugrats are an A-tier enemy. I think that just because of the fact that Clown's attacks are easy to bait and Rugrats attacks are hard to bait, he earns the spot as the second highest A-tier enemy. Next up, we have Robes. Once a Robe spots you, it'll slowly follow you around until it gets close enough to attack. If you look at it, it'll charge at you. If you just look away, it'll slow back down to its walking pace, which makes it very easy to get away from. You can even keep an eye on how far it is by keeping it at the very edge of your screen. As long as you're not looking at the Robe, you can outrun it just by walking because its walking speed is very slow. Robes have 250 health and will deal 100 damage during its standing attack, and if it sees you hide underneath something, it'll drop down to its crouch attack, which will deal 50 damage. Keep in mind that if it can reach you while it's crouched, it'll continue attacking, and it does splash damage, so if any teammates are nearby, it'll kill them too. Robes are pretty much completely silent, which makes it very easy for them to sneak up on you, but since they're big and slow, you'll usually spot the Robe before it has a chance to kill you. As long as you have the resources, Robes are pretty easy to kill since they're such a big target, and since they walk directly towards you. You can stun and kill them with a medium-sized item, or if you have 13 strength, you can stun them just by picking them up. Now, Robes do have very high damage output and can sometimes sneak up on you, so they're definitely an A-tier enemy, but I think since you'll usually spot a Robe before it spots you, it makes them much less dangerous, and even if you don't, they're very easy to get away from, so I'll be placing them right below Rugrats. Some of you might disagree, so I'll be sure I'm in the mood to argue when I open the comments. Next up, we have the Spewer. The Spewer will float around, and once he spots a player, he'll attempt to latch onto them. If you are able to avoid it long enough, it'll usually throw up, then either continue chasing you or fly away. If it latches onto you, it can stay on you for a while, and it'll force you to randomly throw up, so if you have a Spewer on you, just go and stand on timeout until it's off you. The Spewer won't deal any damage to you unless it throws up on you, which rarely happens, but if it does, it'll deal 10 damage per tick. This also means that if it latched onto you, you can use it as a weapon, but it's not a very good weapon. They only have 65 HP, and they'll be stunned by small items, making them very easy to kill. Once you have 4 strength upgrades, you can grab it and smash it against the wall, and if you kill it, it'll drop an orb worth between $1,000 and $4,000. The Spewer will very rarely damage you, and if he does latch onto you, all he really does is put you out of the game for some time, but overall, he's not dangerous, he's just annoying, making him the least threatening enemy in the game. Next up, we have Gnomes. RUGRATS. They'll usually spawn in groups of 4, and each one will have 20 HP and deal 10 damage per hit. If they spot you, they'll run up and try to hit you, which can be avoided just by backing up or jumping. If they spot loot, they'll run up to the loot and smack it to decrease its value, and they will not stop until they've been killed. They are the lightest enemy in the game and can be picked up and thrown without any strength upgrades. Gnomes aren't really that dangerous, they're just kind of inconvenient, especially if they start hitting your loot while you're dealing with other enemies. The only time they're really dangerous is after the last extraction point. For those of you that don't know, after the final extraction point is complete, every enemy will respawn right away. So whenever you kill a group of gnomes, they'll respawn immediately and usually find you pretty quick, making them very annoying and very scary if you're low on HP. I think gnomes are a high C tier enemy just because most enemies on the C tier list can be ignored, but when gnomes are on your level, you pretty much always need to take them out. Next up is the Trudge with 500 health, which is the most health out of every enemy in the game. He slowly stomps around loudly, which means you'll usually see or hear him before he sees you. When he sees a player, he'll groan as he loads his attack, then he'll slam down, pulling in anything within a certain range and dealing 100 damage to anything that gets pulled in. This pull range is a pretty decent size, and he can pull in you and your entire team, and since he outputs a ton of damage, you need to be sure you keep your distance from this guy. Now, if you get pulled in and hit by his hammer, it'll only deal 100 damage, but if you're standing underneath his hammer when he slams down, this will insta-kill you. Since he takes so much time to charge up his attack, it's usually pretty easy to avoid even if you didn't expect him to be there. If you see him charging an attack, just get behind a wall or object and you should be fine. If you have one on your level, you can usually just ignore him as long as you know where he is, and even if he starts getting closer to you, you'll know from your screen shake or from the sounds. If you need to get past him, it's really easy to bait his attack, then sprint past him. He's got a ton of health, so you'll need some pretty good resources if you want to kill him, but since he's slow, big, and easy to bait, he's usually pretty easy to kill given that you have good resources. Even though he's so big, you can still use a medium-sized item to stun him, and if you have 13 strength, you can lift him up to kill him, dropping an orb worth between $5,000 and $8,000. Trudges can sometimes be hard to maneuver around, they're hard to kill, and they output a ton of damage, but I think just because they'll never really catch you by surprise and they're easy to bait, they are an A tier enemy right below robes. Next up is the Chef with 150 health. The Chef leaps around the map until it spots a player, in which case it'll bring out knives, pause for a couple seconds, then tumble towards a player dealing 10 damage. Once the Chef tumbles, it usually stuns itself for a few seconds, then gets back up. The Chef really isn't that threatening because it's very easy to predict and dodge its attacks. If you want to kill it, it's pretty much a free kill since it stuns itself after attacking. You can kill it pretty easily with melee items, or you can stun it with a small sized item. With 9 strength upgrades, you can stun it just by picking it up, and it'll drop an orb worth somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. There's really not much to cover when it comes to the Chef. He doesn't output much damage, he's easy to bait and easy to kill, so we'll be placing him low on the C tier. Next up, we have the PEEPER, which will randomly spawn on the ceiling in random rooms. It'll force you to look at it and zoom in on your camera so it's harder to get away from. When it first locks on you, you'll have about a 3-second grace period, then it'll begin dealing 2 damage every second or so. All you have to do is break line of sight, which can be done by backing up into the room you just came from, using an object inside that room, or even by holding an item. Once you've broken line of sight, just wait a couple seconds and the eye should disappear. You can also drop into object mode and have a teammate pull you out. You can actually kill the eye with a gun, but personally, I think this is completely useless, especially because it won't drop an orb. The only time you really have to be cautious with peepers are if you just respawn and are at 1 HP.
Oh, I didn't know it was that low.
The peeper isn't too dangerous because of its low damage output, and even if you get caught in its attack, it's usually pretty easy to get away from. With that being said, peepers are definitely one of the less dangerous enemies, but when you combine the peeper with, let's say, an A tier enemy, the danger factor of them becomes much bigger compared to the other C tier enemies, which is why I think peepers are the highest C tier enemy.
Okay, we have... What the... There's a... Oh, what the hell? He's on the bottom floor. Have you guys ever seen this? Like, the peeper's down here. That's so crazy.
Finally, we have the UPSCREAM. Once an UPSCREAM spots you, it'll crawl very fast directly towards you, grab you, and scream, pushing you away and dealing 10 damage. Just like RUGRATS, their attack is very hard to avoid, and if one spots you, chances are it will get a successful attack on you. Oftentimes, it'll attack you 2, 3, or even 4 times in a row, sending you into a loop that you cannot get out of. During the early levels, UPSCREAM isn't too much of a threat, it's just kind of annoying to deal with, but once you get to further levels, UPSCREAMs become very dangerous as they can throw you into concept hits and throw you into bad positions near other enemies. They only have 50 health, so they're easy to kill when you have them stunned, but since they're so fast, they're not as easy to stun as most enemies. The good news is that you can stun them with a small item. Just be sure to hit them on the first try, because if you don't, you will be punished. At 4 strength, you can pick them up, which again is not easy since they're so fast. I would just recommend using an item to keep your distance. Killing them will earn you an orb worth between $2,000 and $4,000. Upscreams are fast, hard to avoid, and hard to kill. They don't deal much damage. They usually just put you out of position, but being in bad positions can get you killed very easily on higher levels. Since upscreams will often attack you multiple times over and are extremely hard to avoid once they've targeted you, I think they earn the title of the top B tier enemy. So there we have it, the REPO enemy danger tier list. I think to sum it up, the D tier enemies you'll very rarely get killed by and rarely even get hit by. The C tier enemies are usually pretty easy to deal with even when paired up with other enemies. The B tier enemies can be dangerous on their own, but are much more dangerous when paired with higher tier enemies. And the A and S tier enemies are very dangerous even when they're by themselves. Keep in mind, this is my personal opinion. I definitely think some things could be changed around depending on if it's low quota or high quota, but for majority of gameplay, I think everything's in a pretty solid spot. We are almost at 120,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for the support. Be sure you like, subscribe, and don't forget that War Thunder is free on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and mobile, and you can sign up using my personal link in the pinned comment or description, which includes a bunch of bonuses.